Good morning, class. It's 5 before 5 in the morning on Sunday, the 10th, and we're going to talk about magazines. But before we do, a couple of things. We have been talking about how mass media have influenced our culture's attitudes towards mental health, particularly in regards to Simone Biles, the Olympic athlete. And in the last couple of presentations, we've talked basically about how her behavior at the recent Tokyo Olympics was very positively received. What I'm referring to is her saying that she got something she calls the twisties, where her brain wasn't working in sync with her body. During the Olympics, she just didn't feel like herself, so she dropped out of some of the competitions, and the press was really very positive and accepting of her decision to do that. And we made the point that if this had been 10 or 20 years ago, would the press and would our culture, would society have been so supportive? And she's not the only athlete to to do that recently. So I'm not meaning to. I know I am singling her out, but anyway, there've been a couple of athletes who've gone through this similar behavior. In the live class that I'm now teaching in the evenings, AC 171-25A, we questioned whether there were some films in the last 10 or 20 years that were more positive towards people dealing with their mental health issues. And the class and I talked about a couple of films that did that. And after class, it occurred to me that there was one film that came out, I want to say in the late 60s, that may have helped start this whole positive mental health movement off. And that film was called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It was based on a book. I believe the author of the book was Ken Kesey. It was produced by an actor named Michael Douglas, whose father was an even more famous actor named Kirk Douglas. And it starred Jack Nicholson. And you see Jack Nicholson below here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jack Nicholson. He was the original Joker in the very first Batman movies, and has also won Oscars, and was a very famous actor during the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And he plays a character who is kind of mistakenly placed in a mental health hospital, and his story and the stories of other residents of the hospital, and they're fighting against the establishment and how the establishment wants to treat people with mental health issues. I think maybe helped start the movement towards more positive mental health. I also wanted to make note of the Nobel Peace Prize was won by two journalists. I'm not sure this has ever happened, that journalists have won the Peace Prize. The Nobel Peace Prize is given every year, and the Peace Prize normally goes to a politician, someone who is running a country or a movement, who has, in the judgment of the Nobel judges, has contributed to world peace. And this year, 2 journalists won it. I think this is an interesting statement about the importance of journalism to the world. Okay. One of these journalists in the Philippines, the other one in Russia. 2 countries with repressive governments. Okay, and here's another one, not quite so profound. I can't count the number of times these days that a show I am watching or streaming or a film, the character gets a text message, gets a text, and the character's phone pings, and it's loud, and I look down at my phone to see whether somebody's sending me a message. I don't know. It's something has to be done because it sort of spoils your attention on the film when you're constantly checking to see if you got a ping. Right? Does it piss you off too? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. All right, so our agenda today, after I get those 3 things off my chest, very quickly, questions or concerns. We're going to have a lecture about magazines and talk about what's due, and we're getting close to the midterm. This is the last new content before our midterm. So just remember to file your 3 things learned, 1 thing muddy, so I can see if you have any questions or concerns. You're allowed to put more than 1 thing muddy if more than 1 thing is muddy. That's fine. Okay. Magazines. All right, so look, books and newspapers are like the heavy, serious parts of print. Okay. Yes, books have changed the world. Okay. Darwin's Origin of the Species changed the world. People are still debating that. The science is very clear, but some people feel it conflicts with their faith. The Communist Manifesto changed the world. Newspapers and newspaper reporting. I can just mention, you guys remember the movie Spotlight about the Boston Globe and how its reporters investigated child abuse within the Catholic Church. That spread out, that reporting, that story spread out across the whole world as abuse was found in country after country. It's still being found. I think, was it the latest? France has now uncovered a lot of abuse in the Catholic Church, and the Pope is apologizing for that. But magazines are different. Magazines are lighter fare. Magazines are more entertainment. Magazines are a lovely thing to do if you have a couple of hours to kill. In an airport, for instance, waiting for a plane. You don't want to look up and watch the CNN on the TV set suspended over the waiting area, or you don't really want to watch a Netflix movie on your iPhone and tune out. But with a magazine, you can pass the time very nicely. It's entertainment. It's a nice way to spend your leisure time. So I ask you to bring a magazine. If you don't have a magazine in your hands right now, go get one. Go get a print magazine. Just stop the lecture and go out and buy one that you like on a newsstand, or find one in your house, or borrow one from your roommate. Get a magazine and just start paging through it. Look at the back cover, look at the table of contents, look at some of the articles, look at the ads. How many ads are there? Where do the ads tend to be? What I, of course, really had wanted was for you to bring to class a magazine that you subscribe to, that you actually like. Um, but I know not all of you subscribe to magazines, so just get one you subscribe to, get one you like, get a magazine, and open it up and look through it and see what it is. What is it? Why do we read magazines? How do you read magazines? How do we read magazines? If it's one you subscribe to and you really love, maybe you read it cover to cover. There are magazines that I've read cover to cover. I used to read Mad Magazine cover to cover when I was like 11 and 12 years old, and laughed and giggled to myself the whole way through. How long do you keep magazines? Magazines are somewhere between books and newspapers in terms of their permanence. My ex-wife has stacks of newspapers all over her apartment. Stacks of magazines, I should say, sorry, all over her apartment. Not so many newspapers. Who else reads a magazine that you keep? Magazines have pass-along readership. What ads do you notice and why? What makes you stop and read an ad? Where in the magazine are you more likely to notice an ad? The position or the placement of the ad, where it appears in the magazine, is crucial to whether people see it. The back cover is the most expensive spot for an ad to appear. They normally don't go on the front cover. The front cover is to get your attention to want the magazine. How much unpaid versus paid content? So you have to be a little sophisticated here, folks, about your, what's being put on your plate to understand. Lots of magazines are full public relations placements. PR agencies working on behalf of clients are always sending new products to magazine editors, asking them to review and cover the product, say something nice about it. And there is a lot of unpaid marketing content in filling up many magazines. But again, you have to be a little more sophisticated to notice it. But when you see, if you're looking at a beauty magazine, for instance, or fashion magazine, you may see the beauty editor is reviewing some new kind of face cream and talking about, how great it is. Well, that's most likely a public relations placement. The PR agency for the face cream sent the editor some samples and a write-up on the face cream, and the editor's, writing about it. Public relations placements are, in my view, more powerful than ads, because if the beauty editor of Elle magazine is positive about a product, that's an endorsement. Very credible versus just an ad. So magazine's very open. There's a lot of unpaid marketing content in there. Does the magazine have a website? Do you use it? Here's the ultimate question. Why do magazines exist? Why are they there? The printed magazine and the online magazine. What are they there for? So you're asking yourself all these questions. You've got a magazine in front of you. So as you think about the magazine, as you watch this lecture, I want you to think about what's so special about magazines. Why do they exist? Try to come up with one sentence that sums up your ideas about why magazines exist, what's so special about magazines, and submit that sentence. You can find it in week 6 content as an assignment. So, okay, I'm going to stop here and then pick up on the other end.